What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the FantasyPros YouTube channel. My name is Lucas Wenzel, and today we're going to be talking about 10 players on the waiver wire I am looking to stash ahead of this weekend's slate and ahead of next week's waivers as well. But before we dive into any of that, if you want your chance at winning a signed Davante Adams football, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That's it. That's all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it. Let's start with Latavius Murray, who's sneaky one of my favorite stash candidates this week. The crazy thing about Latavius Murray this year is that in every game in which he's played, he hasn't finished lower than the running back 31 on the week, yet he's rostered in only 24% of Yahoo leagues. Murray has received more rushing attempts than Melvin Gordon in 3 of 4 games since joining the Broncos. He's staying involved in the passing game too, seeing 3 targets in half of his games with Denver. It's not pretty work, it's not efficient work for Latavius Murray, but you look at the stretch of games coming up and that could certainly change. Only 2 of Denver's matchups the rest of the season are outside of the top 13 in fantasy points allowed to running backs this year. There's a lot of scoring potential for Latavius Murray the rest of the season, and considering how poor this passing attack has been, that could mean great things for Denver's run game. While your league mates scramble to add Van Jefferson, do yourself a favor and stash Ben Skoranek instead. Van Jefferson was on the field last week for only 28% of the snaps. Ben Skoranek was on the field for 98% of the snaps. You're never going to be able to replace Cooper Kupp, but in this offense, Ben Skoranek is my pick to fill those shoes. The sample size is extremely small, but Skoranek is second amongst wide receivers in target separation this year. This Rams offensive line isn't going to just magically become better to give Matthew Stafford more time to throw the football. So this offense will likely still thrive on the quick pass, and that favors the likes of Skoranek, who will likely continue to take slot snaps. He's 30th amongst wide receivers in that department. Again, Ben Skoranek will not be Cooper Kupp. Let me be loud and clear about that. But with how this offense has functioned in 2022, he could see an uptick in production. You can't wait on stashing Deshaun Watson any longer because he's eligible to return in a mere 2 weeks, so now is likely the last time to do so. The team is already committed to starting Watson as soon as he's back on the field in week 13, and he was eligible to return to the practice field earlier this week. We know the elite football talent that Deshaun Watson is. In full seasons played, he's never finished lower than the quarterback 5 overall. To close out the season this year, he gets the Ravens, Saints, Commanders, and Steelers, all of which are top 15 in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Corey Davis has been out with a knee injury since week 7, but is eyeing a return soon. At the time of this recording, it seems like Corey Davis has a shot at playing this weekend according to Robert Saleh on Wednesday. Prior to his injury, Davis was averaging nearly 10 fantasy points per game and was the wide receiver 37 through the first 6 weeks. His average depth of target on the season is still 4th best amongst wide receivers at 15.9 yards, and his 18.5 yards per reception is 5th best. Once Corey Davis returns, his only competition will be Denzel Mims for the wide receiver 2 role in this offense, since Elijah Moore has been pretty much phased out entirely. The immediate matchups aren't great upon his return, but looking ahead to the fantasy playoffs, he gets the Lions and Jaguars in weeks 15 and 16, who are both bottom of the pack in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. The Chiefs made 2 things very clear to us in week 10. Number 1, Isaiah Pacheco is the clear primary ball carrier. Number 2, Jerick McKinnon is the clear pass-catching back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was phased out almost entirely, seeing only 4 total snaps. McKinnon now has seen 8 targets, double-digit fantasy points, and a top 24 finish in back-to-back weeks. Whenever the Chiefs are throwing the football, McKinnon is almost always out on the field, and the good news is that the Chiefs have been in high-scoring games all season long. Only 2 times this year have Chiefs games gone under 44 total points. McKinnon is also top 10 amongst running backs in routes run, yards per reception, and yards per touch. His role in this offense is solidified, and he's a great stash for your roster going forward. Terrace Marshall made my waiver stashes a few weeks back after both Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson were traded, and he finds his way onto my list once again. I'll acknowledge, Terrace Marshall put up a stinker in week 10 in a prime matchup against Atlanta, only 1 reception, 2 targets, though it was for 43 yards. I also want to acknowledge, though, that there was immense wind and rain all throughout that game. Throwing conditions were less than ideal. If your league mates kept a short leash on Marshall and dropped him, now is the time to go pick him up and stash him. He's 20th in yards per target and 7th in yards per reception. He does get the Ravens this week too, but more importantly, he gets the Steelers, Lions, Bucks, and Saints in the fantasy playoffs, all of which are top 13 in fantasy points allowed to the position this year. As soon as James Conner showed he was back and healthy, the Cardinals wasted no time cutting Eno Benjamin, making Keontae Ingram the new backup running back in Arizona. It's not an exciting stash, but we all know James Conner's injury history. Keontae Ingram is unlikely to see many snaps and carries since the Cardinals appear to want to give James Conner all the work, but all it takes is one misstep from Conner, and Keontae Ingram could find himself atop the team's depth chart. Insurance is key at this point in the season, and it's the mundane, seemingly pointless ads that could potentially put your team over the top should something happen to a James Conner kind of player. Speaking of Cardinals players, Trey McBride is an intriguing stash. Zach Ertz is going to miss the rest of the season with a knee injury, and he was a big part of this offense, seeing 8+ targets in half of his games this year. Amongst tight ends, Ertz was first in routes run, second in targets, second in red zone targets, second in receptions, and fourth in air yards and air yard share. Those are the shoes that Trey McBride is stepping into in Arizona. Will he replicate Zach Ertz's production? No, I certainly don't think so. But the tight end plays a seemingly important role in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and with how desolate the tight end position is in fantasy football, I'll take any glimmer of hope I can find. I certainly hope nothing happens to Saquon Barkley the rest of the season because he is so incredibly fun to watch, and I would never wish injury upon a player. But I would be remiss to not highlight Matt Breida, another handcuff running back that could save your season from tanking entirely if something were to happen to Saquon Barkley. Breida has been consistently involved throughout the season, seeing anywhere from 15 to 30% of the snaps each week. His role is marginal, there's not a lot of standalone value. But again, at this point in the season, we want to ensure our studs because if anything were to happen to them, we have their immediate replacements who enter the flex or running back 2 range in lineup decisions. To wrap out my list, I have Kendall Hinton, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. This wide receiver group for the Broncos is extremely banged up right now. Tim Patrick, on IR. Jerry Jeudy, likely out this week based on the time of this recording. KJ Hamler, set to miss a few weeks with a hamstring issue. Kendall Hinton, somehow, some way, becomes the wide receiver 2 in this Denver Broncos offense for week 11 and potentially beyond, barring Jerry Jeudy's health. The Broncos have an unbelievable stretch of games to close out the season too. They get the Raiders this week, then the Panthers, Ravens, Chiefs, Cardinals, Rams, and Chiefs again. Those are all plus matchups for Denver Broncos wide receivers, and I know the offense hasn't been great, but I can't see that schedule and not be hopeful for this Broncos passing attack. All right, y'all, before I get out of here, remember, if you want your chance at winning a signed Davante Adams football, courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. Make a great Christmas present, that's all I'm saying, but that's it. That's all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize when we announce it.
Thanks for tuning in to the FantasyPros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos, and while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at FantasyPros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.